Mr. Churchill, scene 2, take 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to claim your attention.
If you're around Hillsdale for very long, you'll find out that Winston Churchill is important. Why? Churchill did things that no one's ever done. He was in the center of the 2 greatest wars in history. Churchill was smart, lightning quick. He was funny.
I don't often do that.
Also, he was eloquent, and eloquent in a greater profusion than I think anybody. You know, we remember things he said.
We must now devote all our strength and resources to the completion of our tasks, both at home and abroad. Advance Britannia. Long live the cause of freedom. God save the King.
He won the Nobel Prize for Literature. He wrote about 50 books. He worked very hard and very long hours. Sometimes he'd have people with him until 2 in the morning. And he organized his life to produce 15 or 20 hours of work a day. And then he was involved in everything. So his archive is huge. The story of his life is huge. And you know, he became, at the end of his life, the greatest man in the world. So that means that everything in his life becomes the subject of study, and Churchill understood all that. And Churchill had this very bright son, and Churchill wrote to him and said, I want you to write my biography. So in 1961 and 2, Randolph Churchill launches this thing. He hired a research assistant named Martin Gilbert, and Randolph Churchill died in 1968. And Martin Gilbert, a young historian who'd been working on the biography and had published 3 books already at a young age, got picked. And in 1977, I was a Rotary Fellow. I had a scholarship to go to England. I was going to write my doctoral thesis on Churchill. And then one of my teachers knew Martin Gilbert and asked him to meet me. And so we had a talk, and well, he offered me a job. August of 1977. 2 weeks later, he hired the woman who's now my wife of almost 40 years. And then in 2001, darned if he didn't up and ask me for a job here at Hillsdale College. And I gave it to him. Anyway, I said, I need to buy your papers, because we made a deal about 20 years ago that if you didn't finish the document volumes to the biography, we made a deal that if you didn't finish it, I would. Because Churchill set this up.
We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets, we shall fight in the hills, we shall never surrender.
The college has the Churchill Project now, which have just been finished and now number 23. So 8 plus 23, there are 31 volumes in the official biography of Winston Churchill. We want people to understand Churchill. First of all, because it's just beautiful to see some of the things he did and understand what produced them. It tells you something about the nature of human life. As Churchill would say, both its triumph and its tragedy. But then second, we want people who are interested in governance, being leading citizens, including politicians. We want them to learn from this guy who has so much to teach. Here's something that's done, that's worthy, that's going to have an abiding influence, and it's not going to make anybody rich. And if you want to honor freedom and the things who fight for it, people who fight for it and secure it, and the truth, what better way to do it? We intend to tell the story of Churchill and make it available in new ways and keep the idea of Churchill alive, because Churchill is an example of a kind of thing that is essential to human nature and helps to solve some of the essential problems it faces. In the moments when things mattered a lot, people often looked to Churchill, including in the moment where they mattered the most.